Hi everybody and welcome to Food Technology Online. Today we're going to be doing a demonstration lesson making cottage pie. Cottage pie is a traditional British dish. It is a mince mixture in a dish topped with mashed potato and baked in the oven until it's crisped off. You may have heard of shepherd's pie before. Shepherd's pie is made with lamb mince traditionally. Cottage pie is made with beef mince, and today we're going to be using beef mince, so we're making a cottage pie. Okay, so the first step we need to do is get our potatoes on to boil to make our mash. So I'm doing a bit of a little twist on our traditional cottage pie today, and we're using some potatoes and some parsnip to make up our mash, just to use the ingredients that we've got available to us. So I'm going to peel those and get that started. Okay, so I've got my parsnips and my potatoes all chopped. We're going to get them on the stove and boil to make our mash. Now the reason that parsnips and potatoes were used traditionally is that they're cheap. It's a cheap ingredient and it would be filling for a family. Shepherd's pie is traditionally, or cottage pie, both traditionally peasant foods. So that means that they were foods and meals eaten by people that didn't have a lot of money, and it was a cheap way to fill the entire. Okay, next up we're going to dice an onion. We're going to slice up our 2 carrots, and we've got some celery. We're going to cook that off to make the base of our mince mixture. Okay, so now I've got my carrot, celery, onion all chopped up ready to go. It's important to remember when we're using our knives, and if you're going to try and recreate this dish at home, that we are using appropriate safety precautions. So you can see that I've got my chopping board firm in space, holding my knife correctly, making sure my fingers were curled back while I slice. Now it's not a race. I know that I use time lapse to make it a bit faster, but it's important to try and take your time and use your knife carefully. 2 feet square on the ground, standing up straight, okay? Other safety precautions, of course, I've got my apron on, and I'm going to be using oven mitts later, and I'm making sure that my workspace is clean, neat, and tidy. Okay, so into our hot pan, we're going to add our onion, carrot, and our celery, and we're going to cook that off until it softens a little bit, and that the onion becomes a bit translucent before we add our minced meat to brown off. So we're just giving this a stir, waiting for it to soften slightly before we add our mince to brown. Okay, so now I'm going to add 400 grams of beef mince to the pan, and I'm going to break it up with my spoon, because if I add it in whole like this, it's just going to cook like one big patty. So I need to use my spoon to break it up into smaller bits, and I want it to be browned off. Okay, so we've browned off our mince almost fully and mixed it through with our onion, carrot and celery. Next we're going to add all the other ingredients. As we've been learning due to migration, some recipes have changed the way they are served in different parts of the world. In Chile, they make a version of cottage pie. It's called pastel de papa, and it also has added to it hard-boiled eggs, raisins and olives. Just makes it have a different flavour and suit their cuisine. Today, I'm going to be adding some black beans to my cottage pie. The reason for this is at the moment we know due to the coronavirus that some ingredients are very hard to come by. My 400 grams of beef mince won't really feed 4 people. So to make my mince mixture extend further, I'm going to add some black beans that I got from the supermarket. You could add any other type of beans as well, and you might just beef it up, pardon the pun, with some more vegetables. And along with my black beans, I'm going to add some green peas, and we're going to also add some thyme. Now thyme, spelled T-H-Y-M-E, is a herb. It smells absolutely delicious, and it's often used in things like pies and casseroles and roasts. It's a funny one to prepare because if you spent forever picking off these tiny little leaves, if you can you see those? It would take you so long. So you actually hold the stem and you pull your hand backwards down the stem to release all the herbs. Okay, so we're going to add the peas and the thyme to the beef mixture that has just recently had the beans added. We're going to give that a nice stir through. Okay, next, so we're adding some crumbled up beef stock cubes to the pan with some water, which I've already added. So you just literally crush it with your fingers. Okay, and then we're going to give that a good stir. And we want to bring that to a simmer so that it reduces down, makes a nice sauce. Okay, to my mixture, I've now added my beef stock cubes, some water, and I've just added a tablespoon of tomato paste for a bit of extra flavour. Now I'm going to season it. It's always important to season our food. It adds to the flavour or enhances the flavour. So we're going to add some cracked pepper and some cracked sea salt. You can just use normal salt if that's all you have at home. Now we're ready to go on and mash our potato and parsnip mixture for the topping, and then we're going to assemble our pie. When we're making our mashed potato, we must be really careful because, of course, we have boiling water around the potatoes. So we need to make sure that there's nobody in our space when we're turning from the stove to the sink to drain our potatoes before mashing, and that we are using appropriate equipment to make sure that we do not burn our hands. So I'm going to use a sieve today to drain my potatoes before I mash them. Okay, so to my potato and parsnip mixture, I'm going to add about 50 grams of butter and a third of a cup of milk. And then using my masher utensil, which some of you have not used this before in the kitchens, we're going to hold the pan carefully. Now this pan has no water left in it because I've drained my potatoes already. Hold the pan securely on one side, hold the masher, and you just press down to make mashed potato. You keep going until the whole pan is the consistency that you're looking for. Okay, so now we're ready to assemble our pies. I've finished mashing my potatoes and parsnip with my butter and my milk, and it's of a nice mashed potato consistency. There's no lumps anymore, no big bits. What I need to do now is assemble. So I've got some ramekin dishes of this shape. Ideally, if we were still at school, I'd use those larger white ramekins, but I don't happen to have any of those at home at the moment. So I'm going to make my husband and I two larger adult size serves in these ones, and then I'm going to make baby Isla some mini ones that she can have as well for dinner. Okay, to make this a little bit more tasty, to the top I'm going to add some grated tasty cheese, just a little bit, not too much. And when we put that under the grill, that's going to melt off and just add a little bit of extra flavour. And then I'm also going to top it with some panko breadcrumbs. Now, panko breadcrumbs are traditionally used in Japanese cooking, and it's just going to add a nice bit of crunch to the top of the pie, similar to if you'd have been eating actual pastry with your pie. These are then going to go under the grill just to golden brown off and get a bit golden in colour, and that is because they've already cooked. The mince is cooked, the potatoes cooked. We're just going to finish the process, adding a bit of colour and texture by putting them under the grill. Now, while we wait for it to cook, let's talk about the dish as it is in terms of our syllabus. So let's think about how we could change it to suit other people's needs and other people's dietary requirements. If we were serving a vegetarian, for example, we might not use mincemeat and instead use a product like tin lentils, which are really cheap and really cost efficient for feeding a family. You could also swap out white potatoes if you didn't have any, and you could use something like sweet potato or pumpkin, which would totally change the flavour, but it would be just as delicious. To make it have different flavours as well, you could use different spices and seasonings. such as paprika or barbecue spices into your mince mixture.
Okay, so we're ready. We've finished grilling these off in the oven, so you can see that the breadcrumbs have browned off and the cheese has melted a little bit, and they're ready for our dinner. So simple recipe that you can recreate at home if you like. If not, hopefully we'll get to cook it together soon at school. Yummy, Isla?